Welcome back to the Print on Demand cast. This week's episode, we're talking about 10 things to do before Q4. Let's get into it.
Radical! Welcome to this week's episode of the Print on Demand cast. Each week, join the gnarly Travis and Josiah as they provide insight into the print on demand industry and equip you with the totally tubular tools, advice, and strategies you need to achieve success and hopefully have a few laughs along the way. Now on to this week's Totally Tubular show.
Welcome back to the Print on Demand cast, your favorite podcast about print on demand. I just know that it is. I trust that we are your number ones, your favorites. And joining me as always, Travis Ross from Make Your Mark Design. Travis, welcome to the show. It's good to be back with everybody here. Here we are on the precipice, on the doorstep of Q4. We're going to talk about 10 things to do before Q4, kind of like our annual Q4 check-in, since it is looming. Winter is coming, and that means that Q4 is as well. But before we get into that, how's your weekend? How's things going there at Make Mark Design? And then we'll dig in a little bit to what last week's episode was also about. So how's things?
Yeah, things are going well. I mentioned last week in the episode that I had a friend come over and kind of help me organize my calendar. And so I put all that together last week, and today's the first day of that. And so far, so good. We are recording this Monday. It's about 1:30 in the afternoon. And so far I haven't deviated from my calendar. Though
Nice.
There's not a big sample size. It's still a win. So
Success.
yeah, this weekend was good. With band played at a place kind of up close to you. A brewery called Mash Lab. We just did a trio. So it was myself, our keyboard player, and our bass player. He played like cajon and bass, just depending on what, song it was. And
Sure.
that was fun. Other than that, just like I said, trying out this new schedule, this new calendar thing. And so far, so good. And hopefully I can get through an entire week following my calendar. We'll
That's
see
the goal.
how that goes. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. In last week's episode as well, you talked about the kind of the POD Foundations challenge. So I don't want to dive into, not document. Well, we are documenting it, but we're also diving into it. A little bit about what the prepping looks like. It starts September 17th, right? Is that, for those listening that don't know, go back to last week's episode and learn more. But Travis, kind of fill everybody in if they perhaps didn't hear episode 210 and you're
Sure.
here in 211.
Yeah, it's a 3-day challenge, September 17th, 18th, and 19th. And we'll do it at 5 p.m. our time, which is 7 p.m. Eastern. It's a free challenge. You'll get all of the spreadsheets that I shared on screen in episode 209. So that's like a master listing spreadsheet, a design spreadsheet. There's all these different spreadsheets, and they all kind of talk together and help you stay organized and help you name all that stuff. But we're going to go beyond, just that part. We're going to talk about some calendar things, like how should we try to stay organized? And then the other thing is that, every single part of my business doesn't necessarily have to be your business. So we are going to have some Q&A where you can kind of ask specific questions related to your business and how you should maybe manipulate some of these spreadsheets to work in your specific situation. So that's going to be really cool. And if you're interested in that, you can sign up now, printondemandcast.com/foundations. That's going to take you to a Calendly link where you'll only be able to see one option to select, and that's the first one. And then so once you've signed up, we'll use email so whatever email you use is where you'll get like the follow-up links to the next, to the Wednesday and to the Thursday challenge. So go printondemandcast.com/foundations, answer a couple questions, put your best email in there, and we'll see you on September 17th. And really looking forward to it, doing a lot of things kind of behind the scenes, getting ready for that, and excited for that to happen.
Nice. Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's something that I think doing stuff like this in these free challenges and kind of providing additional content that's resourceful and helpful in one-on-one kind of conversations. You're gonna have like live Q&A, I think, right in the channel
Mhm.
in that night as well. So something that we've been talking about doing for a long time. So it's off the ground. Again, printondemandcast.com/foundations where you go to sign up for that. So before we get into, we have a point of interest this week. We've got a main event this week. So the docket, the schedule is full, but we couldn't go any further without everyone's favorite segment, the weekly dad joke.
Time for the weekly dad joke.
All right, Travis, what joke do you have for us this week?
Yeah, well, last night, Sunday night, church in the morning, kind of a lot of stuff going on. And usually Jeanette doesn't like to cook on Sunday night. So I decided I would make a Hawaiian pizza.
Mm.
And it looked really good. Unfortunately, it ended up burning in the oven. In hindsight, I should have used aloha temperature.
Very nice. Very nice. Feel free to use that. It's your next poker games, it's your water coolers. Open up the conversation with your boss in the next meeting with that joke. I don't know, break the ice, but let us know how it goes. And we'll be excited to hear as always. I don't know that we've heard a lot from listeners that they've utilized these jokes. Have you heard? I can't remember that specific feedback, but I have to imagine they've utilized it.
No, I haven't heard if they use ours. However, they do tend to post
That they
dad
do.
jokes in our
Yeah.
Facebook group ad nauseum. So
Yes, it's a lot. For a second, it was like, do we take away the segment because that's all we're getting in our Facebook group is dad jokes, but nonetheless, the segment prevails, and we move on to this week's point of interest.
Well, howdy, partner. Welcome to the point of interest part of the POD cast. So grab your hat and hold on tight because we got some learning to do.
All right, Travis, this week's point of interest is a trade show, not just any trade show, not just any event. It's an expo. What's the difference between a trade show and an expo, you're asking? I don't know. But I feel like maybe more exposition at one than the other. Nonetheless, it's happening. Printing United Expo, September 10th through 12th in the city that does not ever seem to sleep. Not New York, but Las Vegas, Nevada. Travis, you are planning on attending, correct? You're going to be there in person and tell people kind of what they can expect. I know I've been to one of these when it was known as another title. But yeah, let people know what to expect, where they can sign up, and how they can connect with you. Maybe add a Calendly link to just hang with Travis at like Caesars and play some Pie Gow. I don't know, but tell the people what they need to know about Printing United Expo.
Yeah, Printing United is like all things printing. So it's not just like we talk about the Impressions Expo, and I love the Impressions Expo. That's more apparel decoration specific. The Printing United Expo is like that and some. It's actually at the Las Vegas Convention Center. If you've ever been to the convention center, they have 3 halls and they are massive. And this is actually taking up 2 of the halls, the South and Central halls. And it's so amazing to just walk. You just keep walking and there's more and more stuff to look at. And, not everything's going to obviously specifically and directly impact or be about print on demand necessarily, but it's such a epic sight to behold when you're seeing these massive banner printers that are like doing massive signs that you're going to see on the side of the road on billboards and stuff. And they're just woo, woo, all the way across, and I remember the last time I was there, I saw a 3D printer that was it was big as a small room. It was massive. You could do like a life-size 3D print. So there's just really, really cool stuff there. for example, in the category, if you go to their website and you search by the vendors by category, in the category of heat presses, there's 18 different vendors that are going to have a heat press of some sort. So, I mean, that's just nuts, so everything from apparel printing, of course, they are going to have DTG, DTF machines there, and all the, sublimation, all the usual suspects. But they're also going to have laser engraving, UV printing, 3D printing, like I said, embroidery. They're even going to have like book binders, business printing, direct mail, like I say, huge machines, like CNC machines that are like cutting into metal and wood and all this stuff. And just so many, just tons and tons and tons of different products. So if you are in the Las Vegas area, or you are going to be September 10th through 12th, you can go to printingunited.com/attend and sign up for the expo. They do have some education stuff. I think that's extra. If you want to, check that out, you can, but it's really a cool experience if you're in the area. So just wanted to throw that out there. I'm going to actually be there. I'm going to be on a panel talking about print on demand with some other people. And then I actually am going to do a podcast with Cassie from Printing United. She's, I don't think she's been on our show before. I've been on their podcast before, and I've written a bunch of articles for their Apparelist. It's like an online magazine. And so she's the one who is my contact there, and she's going to be out there. So we decided we're going to do a podcast. I don't know when it's going to actually air, but yeah, we'll be doing that. And if you are going to be there, please do shoot me an email, info@printondemandcast.com, or shoot me a DM or something, and let me know you're going to be there. Maybe we can, grab a coffee or a snack, or get some lunch or something like that. It would be really cool to connect if you're going to be at the Printing United Expo.
Awesome. Well, there you have it. That's all you need to know. I mean, I can say again, I've been to this show before when it wasn't called Printing United. I've been to a couple other. ASD is another one that happens in the same location for kind of the Amazon reseller segment of folks, or just anybody really. It's the affordable shopping destination, and it is wild. The amount of people, the amount of vendors, the amount of things you'll see, it's nuts. And then it's in Las Vegas, so when you're not on the floor, you can do something cool. Go see a show. Take the high roller. Highly recommend that. Personal experience. Lots of.
I'm gonna go to the Sphere. I've decided.
Oh,
I'm gonna go to the Sphere. Check that
that's
out.
Going to be incredible. I saw something recently online about someone that like looked at or went and watched their like ocean presentation they have in the Sphere, and it looked crazy. So
I can't wait to see it.
Can't wait to hear about that for sure. So with that being said, like we covered at the top, Q4 is almost here, and there's 10 things that you need to do before it arrives. And we're going to cover those 10 things right now in this week's main event.
Main event, 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 main event.
All right. So for those that don't know, Q4 is referring to the last 3 months of the year, October, November, December. It is the season of gift giving, gift buying. And as people who are selling on online platforms, things that people would want to purchase for those gifts for the loved ones, it results in a wild increase in volume. So every year we talk about Q4, kind of a check-in point, because I remember when I was in the industry in the day-to-day, every Q4 was different. And so the only way to have an idea of what Q4 would be like was to kind of take notes and document what the previous one was. And you had some kind of baseline, but it would always change. So every year you're having to prep and anticipate something different, but also try and improve and better upon the systems of the last. So that's why we do this, because you could do 50% of your entire year's revenue in the final month of the year, which is nuts. And there's only 1 month left till Q3, Travis. So we're diving in 10 things people need to know.
Yeah, we're at the end of August, September, and then October's here, So while the craziness doesn't, usually get started till late October,
Yeah.
into November and then it really kicks off on Black Friday. But still, it is something that you're going to see. Yeah. If you've not been in the
Yeah.
print on demand game or in the e-commerce game, it can be absolutely nuts. And it's a good thing. We want it to be nuts because that means we're
Yeah.
selling a lot of stuff. So that's why we're talking about how to maximize your potential. We're not giving you the keys to the kingdom. You're not just going to automatically just sell a lot more in Q4 unless you prep for it, unless you prepare for it. There's potential to do a lot. And so, but you need to prep. So we're going to talk about 10 things that you should at least consider doing before Q4. Some of them you may have already done. Some of them you may already kind of have on a schedule somewhere, or, you're planning on doing it. But let's jump into these 10 things. What's the first one, Josiah?
Yeah. Number one, add more listings. This is number one for a reason. This is the number one suggestion that we have for you. The more offerings you have, the more potential to sell. It's kind of like a, duh moment, right? It's a volume game. And people are going to be purchasing in volume for the holidays. So add more listings as soon as you can, quickly as you can. Again, it kind of goes into the whole spreadsheets and uploading and flat files and that kind of thing. But you're going to want to increase your listings because there's more probability to sell, and that means more money. We said 50% of your year could be done in the last month. How does that happen? Add more listings, and
Right.
and it's going to be it gets gangbusters sometimes, especially if one of them hits. And you'll be glad you added that extra shirt if that's the one that just takes off for the season and results in a spike in your revenue. So
Right.
that's
There's
number one.
there's so many like factors into what could hit and what couldn't, but why not have more opportunity for that by having more listings? I mean, that's really, like you said, this is the number one suggestion, because it is kind of a duh, we just having more listings, you have more potential to sell stuff. So even on Etsy, where like it costs money, if you have a certain amount of money that you want to allocate towards listing per year, allocate most of it in Q4, because you get that 4 months. So right about now is when you should be starting to list those things, because they're going to be falling off, at the end of December after this craziness, 1st of January. So just don't, you don't have to necessarily select the always, relist all the time. So you can just kind of utilize that 4 months in the most popular buying time of the year. So add more listings. That's number one.
Yeah, absolutely. Number two in the list is order flow. The question here is, do you have a good system for processing orders? And nothing will test that answer like November and December, because you'll find out if you have good systems just across the board during Q4, but particularly in your your order process and the system that's there, whatever that looks like. And this is something again that I think is applicable at this point, is applicable to many things that we'll cover. But don't build for where you are, build for where you want to be, and pay that growth. And so the question is, what does that process look like? PODcast episode 16 in the archives, we cover order flow. And kind of at that time gave some insight to how I think both of us were processing orders and ways that you can build systems to process orders as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think the organizational challenge that we're going to be doing, the Foundations Challenge, we'll talk some about that, because having that organization will help you with your order flow. I mean, a lot of our listeners are, they've just connected to a Printify or a Printful, and it's, anytime they get a sale on their Etsy account, it just automatically flows in. And that's great. The question is, what about custom orders? If you're doing personalization or things like that, because that is, I mean, as we've talked about a ton on the podcast, that's very, very popular. So how is that order flow looking? What exactly are the steps in order for someone to order something and have it and like enter in the customization details, and then you have to now create the art and then get it to your print provider. What does that look like? Are you able to handle an extra 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 of these potential orders? Or are you going to need to get some help? Because right now is the time that you need to start being training a virtual assistant to do some of those things for you, to keep an eye on that account, and if it does all of a sudden just explode, you've got some backup there. So the last thing you want to do is like turn off your listing because you just can't handle the volume. That's why we're talking about this podcast, or that's why we're putting this podcast out now, so you can plan to be ready for that awesome problem, Yeah,
totally. Yeah, it's a good problem to have when you get there. Number 3 on the list is pricing. Have you considered the rising cost of goods? It's happening and continues to happen. Printify just raised their prices, and that's in this week's newsletter. What? Where? What newsletter? What are you guys talking about? PrintOnDemandCast.com/VIP is where you can go to get that newsletter and find out more about that. But Printify is raising their costs. Have you considered the rising costs? Last year's rising costs are different from this year's. It's going to be completely dependent, and so the rising cost of shipping can affect how you build in your pricing. The rising cost, obviously, of your, if you're not doing fulfillment yourself, your drop shipper, their costs. What are they charging you for the garments? Because if you're leaving your prices where they were 3 years ago, you're losing money because everyone's having to raise their costs.
Yeah. I mean, you're not necessarily losing money, but your margins are going to be smaller because they continually raise them. I mean, USPS just announced another price increase. It seems like that's just what they do all the time. I remember when you could ship a coffee mug for just over $4, and now it's like, just with USPS first class, if it's under £1, you can't do it for under $5.50, close to $6 now. So and that's, obviously that's over the course of several years, but you get the idea. Think as costs rise, your margins are going to shrink unless you decide to raise the prices. I do remember. So first of all, I will say people will pay more the closer it comes to Christmas. So one of the things that we don't have on here is check your print vendors' cutoff times for when they can guarantee that they'll deliver by Christmas. And even those guarantees, they say that tongue in cheek because no one can guarantee what's actually going to happen. But they may say, hey, you can't send anything, or you can't, any orders that happen after the 10th, we can't guarantee that it'll get there in time for Christmas. And that's really unfortunate because the biggest buying time is between the 10th and the 20th. That's like the crazy time. So if you can find a print on demand vendor for a similar product or the exact same product that says, hey, you can ship or you can have orders come in that we guarantee will get there by Christmas until the 13th, you've just increased the amount of revenue that you can do in Q4 relatively easily. So, and that goes back to how have you organized things, and are you able to pivot to a new new person or new vendor for something like that? But those are some of the things that you should be thinking about right now, because and then the last thing I'll say is in Q4, you can typically charge more for products. I remember many, many years ago, I decided to raise my prices on my coffee mugs. I had 11 ounce and 15 ounce mugs. And I was like, it's Q4. So I just put an extra $5 on the 11 ounce and an extra $5 on the 15 ounce the 15 ounce. And they did not slow down. They did not slow down at all as far as sales go. And so much that I was like, I think I'm going to keep these prices forever now. And so I didn't change them back. I mean, you can, I could have, but I change them back $4 instead of the whole $5, and just recoup a little bit during the year. But you get the idea. It's last minute. They're like, oh crap, I got to get something for Aunt Sally. And so what do? They don't care about the price. They care about the perceived emotion that Aunt Sally's going to get when she opens up that thing. And so if you have the perfect phrase or, design or whatever on that product, you're going to get the sale I mean, obviously there is probably an upward level of, you're not going to get the sale anymore because it's just, I'm not going to pay $100 for an 11-ounce coffee mug.
Sure.
But you might be able to get an extra $2 or $3, so definitely consider your pricing, not only because of the rising cost of goods, but also because of the season that we are going into. Both of those should influence your pricing decisions.
Absolutely. I remember having those conversations with you about because you were telling Jason and myself, hey, this is what I've done in Q4 and no one batted an eye. So consider this. So it's worked, folks, what I'm saying. Yep. It's advice that has been applied and it worked. Number 4 is a question, really, something you need to be answering and make sure what you're doing is, are you tracking your orders? Now, if you listened last year, maybe you've got this info ready to help you plan better, but you need to keep track of what is selling and how much so that next year you have a leg up on the process. When I was talking about when we were in, and when I was in the day-to-day and we were going from Q4 to Q4, that was something to pay attention to. What are the winners? And we'll get to another reason why you want to track your winners that could be advantageous and kind of help increase volume as well. We'll get to that in this list, but you want to keep track of what's selling and how much is selling so that when you come back to Q4, that these certain designs are going to sell better, or gives you an idea of maybe more designs to create like the ones that were winners. You just need to have that data. It's very, very valuable information to have, and most sales channels have the ability to run reports for a specific date range, right. And then they export them as CSVs or spreadsheets, which I know Travis is ecstatic about because he loves spreadsheets. But Travis, what else about tracking that data? What else is advantageous in regards to why someone should do that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you want to track your data and which of your products is selling well, but you can also expand this concept to your research, because a lot of our, the tools we recommend, specifically like on Etsy or whatever, like an Everbee or an eRank, they will allow you to put in date ranges and see what products were popular. And so you can use that data to create new products that did well last year. You might not have thought of it, but somebody did. Now, obviously you don't want to copy anybody. And we always talk about that. Right. Don't copy other people, make it unique, make it your own, change some things about the design, about the wording, but the concept itself will obviously hit a nerve last Q4. So how do we take that data and apply it to our products so that we can take advantage of those potential winners for this year? And then after the Q4, you download all the reports of your sales and you see if it actually, produced results. If you actually saw some sales from those new products that you entered in, and then you can use that data again next year, as well as more research. So this is a huge one. And I think a lot of people don't think about this or don't really want to put the work in to focus in on this, but it's, you could be leaving money on the table if you don't take the time to actually track what sold last year, in your own print on demand business and in other people's print on demand business.
Yeah, absolutely. Number 5, moving right along. If you're doing fulfillment, do you have enough product and shipping supplies? Now, for me, this is where in the beginning, when I said build for where you want to be, not just where you are, this system of how we tracked inventory was not where we wanted to be. It was very much where we were. And then 3 years later, we weren't there doing way more volume, but we didn't change that system. And so it was an absolute dumpster fire trying to figure out quantity, what's in stock, what's not in stock, who pulled that, did you pull that? We had 3 or 4 people working for us. It was atrocious. So Travis, you had a system, Make Your Mark Design, Kanban cards. Tell people a little bit about those if they haven't heard of it before. Longtime listeners of the show have heard us talk about Kanban cards, but if someone's like, what in the world is Kanban? Sounds like somewhere I could get a killer boba or maybe some sushi, but it's not. Maybe, but it's not what we're talking about. Tell them about Kanban cards.
Kanban cards are part of the lean manufacturing system. So this was actually, and many people know way more about this than I do, but it was popularized by the Toyota car company in Japan years ago, and it created kind of the Six Sigma stuff. And, you got black belts in it that can really kind of come in and organize your stuff. And they have all these different ideas of waste. And so like one piece of waste is like, how many steps does it take for you to go from your heat press to where your transfers are? And if it's too many steps, you're wasting, so you move the transfers closer to the heat press, or you move the heat press closer and you're wasting less. So that's the idea. There's a whole lot more to this, but one of the ideas or things that they would do was use these Kanban cards, and these Kanban cards would, the way we use them. So we would have stacks of, maybe 10 large black shirts, or well, black's a bad example because we used full cases of those, because they were the most popular. But like maybe we have, 10 large royal blue XL shirts. And so at the bottom, maybe on, between the third and the fourth shirt, we would put a card in. And what this card would tell, it would signify when somebody pulled those shirts and they got down to that card, that means, oh, we need to reorder. And so you would take that card and you would put it in a little spot that we would be reordering from. And so someone would have all these cards and they would take them to the computer, and they had little QR codes on them. So the person could just QR code it. It would take them right to the product page. They could say, okay, we need another. And then on the card, it would tell you how many to actually order. So in Q1, 2, and 3, we'd have a certain amount that we would want to reorder. But in Q4, obviously there's a lot more volume. We would reorder more. So there would be 2 numbers on there for the reordering purposes. And then it would also have like a second QR code if, and we learned this from 2020 when getting apparel was really challenging. If, vendor 1 was out of this particular size or style or color, we would go to vendor 2. So we would put up to 3 different places that we could get this one particular product. A lot of times it was like a Gildan t-shirt or something like that. And so using that system or a system like it can really save you a lot of pain, because you always are reordering before you need more, and you're not just, oh crap, we've only got 1 left and this order's calling for 3, You've already reordered them. At least they're going to be there tomorrow because when it got to 4, you reordered, if that makes sense. So that's the Kanban system. But if not that system, what are your systems if you're doing fulfillment? So a lot of our listeners are not doing fulfillment. This doesn't necessarily apply, but if you are, what are your systems for ordering before you run out? You need something. I think the Kanban system really worked for us, but maybe it won't work for you for a variety of reasons. I was mentioning, like with our black t-shirts, every single size would have, when we finished, we would always have 1 case extra. So we'd be, going through a case, and when we got to the end of the case, we'd have another one there, and immediately we would order. So it depends on the volume of the potential product or the particular product that you're using, and how much you're going to go through. And again, going back to the previous point, having looking at the order data from the previous year is going to inform your decisions on how much you should have on stock and where you should at what level you should be reordering. But this is something to definitely think about. I tell this story every year, but I needed we ran out of bubble wrap, and we tried to stock up, but we ran out of bubble wrap. And I remember spending hours calling on the phone to different places to try to find a specific bubble wrap that was perforated in the right spot and was the right width and all of that. And I had to go, physically pick up multiple orders of bubble wrap multiple times in Q4 because our vendor ran out, and we didn't plan to have enough on hand. We just assumed that we could just get it from them all the time. And unfortunately they ran out. They weren't going to get anything for multiple weeks, and we couldn't ship coffee mugs without it the way we were doing it right then. So I spent countless hours on the phone trying to find it. And then I would have to drive to it. And then I'd have to pay like twice as much than I paid from my normal vendor just for bubble wrap, So lesson learned the hard way.
Yes.
Don't let my pain save you from learning that lesson the hard way.
Absolutely. I remember that because you called to ask us if we had any bubble wrap, and it was a no. We did not have extra bubble wrap. So number 6, maximize your assets. Again, we talk about this a lot on this show. If you're a longtime listener, but taking your best selling items and putting them on different things heading into Q4, for example, home decor, ornaments. Travis, you guys are doing that this year for Q4. Is that right? Some ornament selling.
Yep. Yeah, we're
That's
going to
awesome.
be. I mean, we do have a lot of. Obviously, we've been doing this for a lot of years, so we have a lot of Christmas designs,
Yeah.
that are on just coffee mugs, and shirts and all that stuff. So we're going to transition. We're going to put some of that stuff on ornaments. It's about dang time,
Yeah.
as well as design specific, like new designs based on data from
Yeah.
previous years, other sellers. We're going to put some on those ornaments this year. So yeah, that's a good
Yeah,
one.
absolutely. And you can consider other items too. You think of stocking stuffers, right? Everyone's going to have stockings during Christmas. So stickers, pop sockets, keychains, like those kinds of things, decks of cards, whatever that you can have that people can buy and easily fit in those stocking stuffers. So again, just taking what is already existing and maximizing that, and by putting them on different substrates and different items and create new revenue that way. That's the easy way to create new listings, by the way. It's just putting your stuff on new items.
Yep. I mean, the other part of this that I don't think we talk about, but and you've heard us talk about a million times, when you're talking about maximizing your assets, maybe consider going onto a new channel. Right now is when you should do it. Don't wait until October, November, because your listings won't have time to kind of get into the algorithm of whatever channel that is. But if you're not selling on Amazon, or you're not selling on, you are selling on Amazon, you want to maybe check out Walmart. I mean, right now is the time that you should, if you want to implement a strategy to maximize your assets by jumping onto a new channel, do it right now. Start the process now. With Walmart, it might take you a couple of weeks to get approved, but it's still, I mean, if you've got everything ready to go, you've already got your products, going onto Walmart's not that difficult. And you could double your sales this year just by doing that one thing. That's not creating any more designs or new products. That's just getting in front of more people. So maximize your assets is huge in a lot of different ways. There's a lot of ways you can go about that. I just wanted to, sorry, I interrupted you. Just wanted
no,
to
you're good.
that
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So number 7 is more for drop shippers. Again, we address those that might be doing production, but for those that are not drop shippers, do you have a backup supplier for your best sellers? Now, this is something that we learned during 2020 when the entire world shut down.
Right.
And we didn't know we needed backups until there was no other options. But it's just as important now as it was back then. It's still a good thing to have figured out prior to Q4, just in case. Again, we have a month left before Q4 really hits, maybe a month and a half before the craziness of Q4 starts to kick in. But you have plenty of time now to look at those potential backup options. And we've got plenty of vendors on our resource page to choose from. That's printondemancast.com/resources to figure that out as well. But Travis, they need to do it now because there's a few things you need to figure out before they make that switch in the filling out process. So to understand their ordering process, talk a little bit about that as well in terms of more advantages to taking care of that now as opposed to under the gun in December.
Yeah, I mean, the last thing you want to be doing is like a vendor runs out of a specific, product or something that is really selling well for you. And then you're like, well, I have a backup vendor, but I didn't do the legwork to know how to get the orders easily to them. And so now every single time somebody orders that product, you've got to copy, paste. It's not automated. So that's kind of what we're talking about. Like set up the systems, understand the best way to import into that new, that secondary vendor, if you will. This goes along with pricing. Maybe it's time to shop around with some of your vendors because prices have increased on this platform or from this vendor, but maybe they haven't quite as much over here. And so having both of those options You might even want to switch before Q4 just to make sure, just to get the best possible bang for your buck. But even if you don't want to do that, understanding the automation process of getting them orders automatically the same way that your primary vendor does, in case that vendor runs out of extra large black t-shirts or 11-ounce coffee mugs. I mean, oh my gosh, can you imagine? Now, I will say that like Printify has kind of a backup system you can select in your settings where if somebody's out of something, it'll automatically reroute to a secondary vendor. That said, that secondary vendor might charge $5 more than the first one did. I mean, you just don't know until it happens. So having those systems in place, you can avoid being overcharged for something. Later down the line, you can go, nope, I want to select my other vendor because I've already got it all selected. I've already got it all in place and blah, blah, blah. And I know who I want to choose. Maybe I've even gotten samples from them. So I know that their quality is just as good as my primary vendor. All those things, just have that in the back of your mind and consider going through that pain now so you don't have to worry about it in the thick of Q4 orders.
Yeah. Yep. Number 8. Have you considered selling on Fulfilled by Amazon or Walmart fulfillment services for your best sellers? Travis, explain what that process looks like. Because we talked about identifying your best sellers, and now you can take those best sellers and sell them FBA or WFS and make things a little bit, I guess, maybe in the long run, a little bit easier on those listings as Walmart and Amazon handle the fulfillment of those. But I know it's something you've done quite a bit with your bestsellers. So kind of explain what that process looks like, just briefly as we continue through our list.
So Print on Demand Cast episode 6, way back when we talked about selling on Amazon, and we explain FBA a lot. Walmart Fulfillment Services is newer than FBA, so it hasn't been around as long. I've only done one shipment to Walmart Fulfillment Services, and that's a whole nother podcast. But the idea of utilizing this goes back to understanding what sold last year, understanding your best sellers, what are the good sellers. And so I remember several years ago, we made 4 pallets of, I think 20 boxes that each had 36 mugs. Each one of those boxes had 36 unique designs. So we chose, 20 times 4. So 80 different designs of 11-ounce mugs. Maybe a few of them were 15. I don't remember exactly, but we put them all on these pallets and sent them into FBA. And the benefit of this is that, and you can use your existing print vendors. If you want to do this, go ahead and send me an email to info@printondemandcast.com, and I'll send you a specific print vendor that does this really well. They've done a ton of FBA. And if they have your product that you want to send in, they're probably the best one to go about doing this if you're selling on Amazon. So go ahead and send me an email if that's you. But what happens is let's say your primary print vendor says, well, if we don't get the order by the 10th or the 11th of December, we can't guarantee it for Christmas. If you have products in FBA that are selling, they can order those up to when Amazon says they can't order them anymore because they have the 2-day shipping. They're prime at that point. So they could order them until the 20th. So you have a lot longer sales period for those particular products. And the cool thing is that you can still offer both prime FBA. You can have 2 listings on Amazon for the same product. You can say this, this is merchant fulfilled and it's sent by, Joe's Cool Coffee Mugs. And this is made by Joe's Cool Coffee Mugs, but it's sent by Amazon. And so you can, if you want to, maybe you make more money when you sell it merchant fulfilled, you could raise the price on Amazon $1. So the buy box on Amazon is always saying your merchant fulfilled product, and you sell that until it's not going to reach them in time for Christmas. And then it'll switch over to the FBA product, which is selling for more and will sell until like the 20th or the 21st, or, maybe
Yeah.
even the 22nd, depending on, where they're located in the country, because Amazon's algorithm on their buy box is that detailed. It knows, oh, well, we have one in Des Moines, Iowa, and this person is just down the street. So we'll sell it to them on the 23rd because we know we can get it to them before Christmas. So it's just a great idea to consider this for your best sellers. I wouldn't just send everything in, but if you've got some things that have sold and you're selling on Amazon, why not take advantage of those extra 10 days that
Yeah.
Amazon can do the fulfillment for you? It's just a really good business decision, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Number 9 is one that hurts my brain.
Emotional damage.
If your bookkeeping figured out, is number 9. The cost of goods. Other, we've talked about fixed costs and variable costs and all these other things before on the show, but you need to know what your expenses are, because at the end of the day, you need to know if you're making money and charging enough, and your sales price is set at a place where you are making money. And so much goes into that. So much goes into it. Neither Travis or I are necessarily savants at bookkeeping or certified public accounting. So I would recommend talking to a CPA before the end of the year to make
Right.
sure that you have a good idea of what you're walking into, where you're at in terms of your margins and your costs as you are heading into the busiest time of the year.
Yeah. And the other reason you want to talk to them is because if you have made sales, if you had made some money, what is your tax liability for these? What's the best way to save on taxes? And so it might be that you need to buy a piece of software, buy a whole year subscription to place it, or to, create a fabric or whatever, just to save on your taxes, because you can write, again, we're not CPAs. This is not tax advice, but you could potentially save on your, like, what you have to pay the government for your revenue, like what you made.
Yeah.
So you want to try to balance that by spending as much as you can. You don't want to make anything on paper if you can help it, because that'll lower your tax burden. So that's what a good bookkeeper can help you do. That's what a good CPA can do. If you don't have one, they do get booked up at the end of the year, because a lot of businesses close their year, or close their calendar. They're on a calendar year schedule. And so they might get booked up in December. So it might make sense for you to get on their schedule now and find that bookkeeper. So you have, that December 22nd appointment already, and you've seen most of what's going to happen that year. And so you can go, okay, I'm doing pretty well. I've, made a certain amount. I'm probably going to make this much more. What should I do? So that's a good thing to do now before they get booked out. Finding a good CPA is so great. It's so wonderful to have somebody who's actually on your
It
side.
really is. Yes, it makes a world of difference. I love my CPA so much, especially as an independent contractor, 1099. She is my favorite person at tax time. So, number 10, and the last one on the list here is put a strategy together for Q4. This is where everything kind of comes together for you. Take some time and go through these 10 things and put pen to paper and decide on a strategy and how you're going to address all of these items on the list. For instance, how many listings do you want to create? And are you going to create a new product? How many? And which vendor you're going to be using? And what about your backup vendor? Well, which designs are going to use on those new products? So take time and really set a goal of what Q4 is going to be for yourself, so you can implement these things instead of trying to take things as they come, because that does not always work out the best, because you're always being pulled in a million different directions. So if you are preemptive and not reactive, you'll have a lot better success in kind of answering, addressing, and implementing the changes and the things you need to kind of realign heading into Q4.
Yeah, we have a episode. I was just looking at my second monitor over here. Episode 176, setting goals the right way in print on demand. And I would highly recommend you checking that out if you're going to take this seriously and you want to figure out How many listings? Okay, well then,
Yeah.
if I want to make 100 more listings, what is that per week? And when do I want to have, what's my deadline to get them
Right.
all up so they populate on these channels and kind of get into the algorithm so they're actually searchable? Well, maybe that's only a month from now. So that means 25 a week. How many does that mean a day? How many, backing into your answers. And so we talk a lot about that on episode 176. Just wanted to throw that out there. If this is so important, Q4 is the place we talked about at the top of the show. 50% of your revenue could be made literally in like 30 days for the whole year. So you should take that seriously. You should plan for that. You should actually have a strategy going into that. And so taking these 10 things, like Josiah said, putting pen to paper, really figuring this out. Maybe there's some other systems, there's some other things that you need to have organized that we didn't even talk about in this episode. And as you take the time to just slow down and focus on your business and think through this strategy, some of that stuff will come to you, and it'll really ultimately benefit you as we go into Q4 and this super awesome e-commerce time of the year.
Yes, it is an adventure every year. Like I said, no two are the same. Always seems like the wildness and the craziness compounds every year, but that's what makes it fun. Because again, you are going to be learning, you're going to be hopefully selling a lot. And at the end of it, come January, when the dust settles, you'll be able to look back and maybe with a little bit more joy, review that last month. In the thick of it, maybe you're freaking out, but it's going to be okay. And hopefully these 10 things give you some stuff to work on, some homework to do, to prep, and to make it easier heading into Q4 and the busiest time of Q4. Like Travis said, October is not too crazy. It starts heating up end of October, and then it really heats up on Black Friday. So all that to say, take advantage of the calm before the storm, and begin to kind of forecast how that storm might look and where it might hit, so that you can be prepped better. I've seen twisters twice already. So when I think about storms, I just think about wild tornadoes. So just take advantage of the prep time, even when it is tornado season, to be ready for what the storm will bring. With all that said, Travis, anything else before we wrap this one up?
No, I think we said it all. Just go through those 10 things and make a plan.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for listening this week. Again, the newsletter, if you want to sign up, printondemancast.com/VIP is where you can go to do that, to get more insights, tips, tricks, and an extra dad joke for your week. And then be sure to be back here next week, because we'll have more content for you. But until then, for Travis, I'm Josiah, and we'll see you right here on the Print on Demand cast.
See ya.
Whoa. Hold on a minute. Before you go hitting that pause button and jumping into the next podcast, let me tell you about the free Pod Foundations Challenge happening September 17th to 19th. We're flipping the script on how you organize your print-on-demand business, giving you the same organizational spreadsheets I use to keep track of all my designs, my SKUs, and everything else I need to create a listing on any channel. Can't make it to the first session? No worries. Go ahead and sign up and catch the recordings later. Go to printondemandcast.com/foundations today and get in on this game-changing event. All right, now let's cue that outro music.
Hey, babe. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Print on Demand cast. We hope you enjoyed the Totally Tubular Show. If you got a question or a suggestion for the show, send Travis and Josiah an email at info@printondemandcast.com. Want to be wicked nice? Take a minute to rate and review the show on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe now so you don't miss next week's episode. See you next time, for sure.